10 minutes is not a lot of time to
No,
figure this out.
to do an assessment, it's quick. Wrong medicine or wrong information is just as dangerous as no information. We found a lot of people were scratching things off, rewriting, or drawing arrows to it, or not updating it at all. And sometimes these were years old. If it's not correct, it can't be used. When you came out with the tenderID, it was like the next step up. It was like on steroids, the Vial of Life. You made it simple, and you really made it easy to update, and that's what people want nowadays. We want simple, easy things, and that's what you made it. I'm hoping you get to that point in the world, just like Mr. Miller did with his Vial of Life. It's all over the United States, and I'm hoping that for Tender Care, because I think it's the next generation. You're living it because you have a family member that is struggling and living with a deteriorating illness. So it's not only that you're just making a career out of this, you're living it. You started with a heart and a passion because you needed help. And I think that's where the true quality of your app came from your heart. You're about creating better lives for people. And I think if you just keep that heart and keep that thought, you guys are going to go miles and miles and miles. And I hope everybody in the United States is going to know about Tender Care very soon, if not already.
Laurie,
Yes.
we would love to hear a little bit about your background and your experience as an EMT. I know you've served for many, many years as an EMT. Can you just tell us a little bit about what drew you into this and why?
Of course. I was an EMT for just a little over 13 years. I ended due to some injuries and older age. It is a younger person's game, but I do miss it totally. But I did get in from emergency medicine, somehow got my route into home care. And that's where I'm now working now. I have great joy in helping people age safely. Most people in their homes want to stay or wherever their homes may be. I also found a lot of problems in this field. So I've become an advocate of let's change things. Let's get this better because, look, we're all living longer. So how do we live longer better? And that was my goal. But so I take my emergency medicine background and kind of meshed it into home care and learned that field over the last 9 years working for my company. And it's a passion now for me, and I truly enjoy it. And I'm so amazed at what you have achieved because Tender Care is something we really need. It's something that is going to help us get to that next stage of caregiving.
Well, thank you. And thank you for all the help you've given us in thinking through how to really serve families. I'm curious, can you walk us through just in your experience as a first responder, like what is a typical visit like? Like what kind of walk me through some of the things that you ended up seeing?
Well, we would get a call, we get on scene. We also have a time limit when we're on scene. So that's very important. We have to keep in contact with our radios because they do make sure we're safe on scene too and what's going on. And there's state numbers that are all registered. So when we get on scene, our first thing is to see what's going on, find out medications, find out illnesses, what happened, was it witnessed? And a lot of times we don't have those answers, whether it's a nighttime call, especially, or into an assisted living or someone's home. And people think they're going to remember everything. And when we have trouble knowing what someone's diagnosis is, what medications, because we may need to know someone's baseline, because if they're acting oddly, is that their normal baseline, or did they hit their head? Do they have a brain bleed? Did they have a stroke? So it's peeling pieces of the onion, we'll say, and we have to do that all within 10 minutes and get on the road and if we're transporting. So it can get quite hectic. We can't stay on scene longer for times, but we have to register why we're on scene. So those, what used to be the Vial of Life, were a very important thing, and we would look for them. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we got a shoebox full of medications that someone didn't know if they were still taking, which ones they were taking. Sometimes there were doubles of things. So it's deciphering that, but it does delay care and does delay, life-saving care sometimes. And like I said, the wrong medicine or wrong information is just as dangerous as no information because we go off of what we find, and we're sometimes flying blindly. So we have to do what's best with what we have.
10 minutes is not a lot of time to figure this out.
To do an assessment, it's quick.
What is it like when you don't find some of this information?
We have to just go by what we are assessing. So sometimes like we said, we are going by what we see, what we know, and start care on those framework. But it's very hard because sometimes we do have to hold back doing certain things if we're not sure, because the things we could do could be more dangerous than just taking them and going, because giving someone, say, some medications if they're having heart issues, say they're having chest pains, and we want to know if they're on ED medicine, which is erectile dysfunction. It sounds funny, but if we give someone nitroglycerin when they're on that, we could drop their pressure even more. And a lot of people are nervous about saying they're on it or don't want to say it, but they don't realize we don't care they're on it. We just need to know for other reasons, because there are medicines we could give that could be detrimental to them if we don't know they're on there, and we may need to use something else. So we have to be very careful, because people aren't good reporters sometimes, or afraid to talk to you, or if they're on a substance they're not supposed to be taking. We don't care. We're just trying to figure out how to best care for you. We're not the police. We're not, we're not reporting anything, but people do get worried. And basically seniors really don't remember why they're taking something. If you ask them, and some medicines are used for multiple things, so it's not as easy as saying, oh, it's a heart problem or it's blood pressure. It could be being used off brand for something else. And they'll be like, I don't know, the doctor gave it to me. And
you don't know why.
We're trying to figure out why.
And you mentioned the Vial of Life. Can you just explain a little bit more about
Sure.
that and what you're looking for in that? And also, what are the pros and maybe some of the drawbacks that you found?
Well, the Vial of Life, I believe, came out in the 1980s by a gentleman. His last name was Miller. And it was a wonderful thing when it came out. And it was a way for EMS to be able to know exactly what you were on and what your diagnosis was and what your emergency contacts. And it was used, the first one was put in a bag or a vial and put in the freezer. But we knew to look. But moving forward, it became a magnet with a pouch and a paper handwritten form, so you could do it on the computer and just print out your medicines. But we found a lot of people were scratching things off, rewriting, or drawing arrows to it, or not updating it at all. And sometimes these were years old, still sitting on, and they might have not been on those medicines anymore, or some of them, not all of them. And if it's not correct, it can't be used. So, we could get emergency contact, or we would treat off of that information and then find out, something happened. We dropped a blood pressure, or we did this. It must have been that. And we have to turn around, change our thing, which could be dangerous for them, especially during strokes or heart attacks, where we may have to do an intervention at the hospital, and we gave them something that might have been detrimental. Not that we did anything wrong. We went off the information we had. So it was good at its time. It really did work for most cases. It was a godsend. But I've noticed over the years, and as an EMT myself, people weren't updating them, or they were writing and we couldn't legibly read it. And we have to take time to take either that paper or write everything down or figure it out. Another slow thing. So when you came out with the tenderID, it was like the next step up. It was like on steroids, the Vial of Life. So it was great because, one, it can be updated from anyone and anywhere in the family and the care group. So, and it could take pictures, and you made it simple, and you really made it easy to update, which is more important. And everybody has cameras now, or iPads on an EMS vehicle. Fire, police, they all can take a picture of it. And it's so quick. And are the chances it's not updated? Absolutely. But I think it will be updated more because of the ease. And that's what people want nowadays. We want simple, easy things. And that's what you made it. And it also identifies when it's been scanned to an emergency contact, I believe, which gives someone to say, oh, my mom's thing was scanned. Let me make sure she's okay. So it, because parents hide it. I can't tell you how many clients I have that the kids go, I never know my mom went to the hospital. I never knew the neighbor was picking her up off the floor or doing these things, because they hide it from their children. So in a way, it's kind of a way of a little safety net for them that the family can find out.
I think that's so interesting, this sort of like not wanting to. Do you think it's not wanting to burden their family? Where do you think it comes from?
They're afraid of what the family is going to put them somewhere or take away their independence. There's so much fear of independence, and I talk to my seniors about this all the time. Asking for help, reaching for help. We all need help sometimes. We're all going to need help at some time in our life. That you're actually strengthening your independence because you're making the choice. You're making yourself safe. the longer you can continue in the path, because it's not if you fall or something happens, it's when it's going to. Because as we get older, those chances just rise. And I tell them all the time, you're taking control, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to fall, you're going to get hurt or something, and then someone else is going to take control, and you are going to lose some independence. And I try to get them to think in a different way, that we all need help. I needed help. I had a bad ankle injury like you do, and I was in a cast. I had 2 surgeries in a cast and boot and everything for almost a year of healing, and my husband and my kids, and having to just put the thing on just to get in the shower, and getting some help when I needed it, people helping with laundry. And it is hard, especially in personal care and things like that. It's hard, but I did it because I knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And I tell them, care doesn't always have to be all the time. Sometimes it's in little spurts and little bits.
When you say that you're talking to both sides, you're talking to, someone who has needed emergency services, and then sometimes families who haven't found out for several days, or they're finding out way after the emergency has happened. Like, what has that experience been like? Like, where do you see some of the breakdowns in that? I totally understand why, but what are some of the consequences of that?
HIPAA is a wonderful thing. It protects our information, but it also sometimes, I feel, there's got to be some kind of little gap there, because families aren't notified, because hospitals can't tell, people can't tell. EMS, we do report it a lot to the hospital, saying, we've been to this house 10 times in the last week. They're having trouble. You need to contact. And emergency doctors are overworked. They're busy. And things do get reported, and things sometimes fall down the line. And I'm not blaming any one service. I think it is a broken system from the government down, without getting political. But we need to do better. And I think there have to be some things maybe changed in that HIPAA compliance, that if someone is showing, especially at a certain age, repeated hospital stays and stuff, somehow there has to be a way to notify a family member. Not saying all of what's going on, but to say, I think you need to check in. I think they need help. And it does happen as it gets to social services, but it sometimes is a trickle and a long process.
And how long is that process sometimes?
It could be months, because they may go out and they may talk to the person. And a lot of seniors can be very good actors. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but they compensate. And when you see them during the day, maybe during a good time, the social worker say, well, they seemed okay. They seemed fine. This might just be a bout, and it goes off. And then the cycle happens again, and then we report again, and then it starts another one. And it's until that really goes downhill. It's almost attributing it to the same problem of, domestic violence and abuse. It takes someone getting hurt, or it takes a big crisis before people pay attention. And I'm trying to get people to say, let's pay attention before those things. So,
well, you have had a major hand in helping us to design the tenderID.
It's just an idea. You built it.
Wow. Well, we're standing on the shoulders of years of real experience inside of people's homes and helping them. And I'm just curious, going back, if we were to rewind the tapes to when I first reached out and I was like, Laurie, we need some advice on what we should be building into the tenderID. Can you kind of just talk me through what you knew we needed to get right on this in order for this to actually help families?
Well, it was definitely making it easy to be updated was the biggest thing. How do they get the information in, which I think you made very easy and very great. It can be remotely updated, which is big, because, whether a caregiver or someone or a family member can tell the family member, because we have different family members sometime in charge of different things. Who's in charge of medical, who's in charge of financial. So you made it able for that person to take charge. Even if the mother can't remember the medicine, that family member could reach out to the doctor and say, Mom, I know got new medicine, and they can upload it right then and there. It was the look of it to make sure it could be identified correctly by EMS, quickly and easily. You made that. I believe, what else did we do?
There was one thing that I thought was so interesting and unexpected. You got down to as practical as the fact that if we were to put one of these in a wallet.
Yes. When we do check wallets, we check bracelets, we check for necklaces, because there's identifying things if someone's a diabetic, heart issues, seizures. So having that same thing in their wallet where we can just scan one, we're going to see it right away on our screens, but we can take it to the hospital too. And it helps with that immediate diagnosis, especially like in a stroke, which are very important. We're talking about 90 minutes. We have a window.
That's it.
They call it the golden hour, of heart attacks and strokes, to get someone to the hospital, to whether it's a cath lab for a heart attack or for a bleed in the brain. Is it a bleed? Is it not a bleed? Is it hemorrhagic, or is it a regular stroke? What are we doing? Are we giving TPA? Or we're not giving TPA? Was it witnessed? When was the last time someone saw them or heard from them? Because there's 3 hours that you're allowed to give the TPA. And so these are questions that are really important. And if we don't know them, then they can't give it. We go a different route. But all that is very time sensitive. So it's getting
golden hour.
Yeah,
10
it
minutes.
really is. And in our town, at least, we are pretty close to hospitals and stuff. But some rural towns, that could be a big difference. Make a big difference having that medicine. Are they on blood thinners? There's the magnet is such an important part, the Vial of Life, and I try to get people to understand this. It's so important, especially a lot of seniors are living alone. And they have complex histories of medical things. So having it all in one place has been an amazing thing, and basically being updated is so important. And
can you think of any experiences, and I know this was like, you're not retired, but can you think of any experiences in which like having the tenderID would have changed any specific?
Definitely. We've had some places, and I'm not putting anyone down, some assisted livings where we go in at night and it's a skeleton crew and something has happened. It's in their independent part, so they're not required to keep their medications or keep those records. So it's at night and nobody's around and we don't know anything about this person, to have that information. Also, we have gotten wrong face sheets from some of the assisted livings. Someone grabbing, or it got filed in the wrong thing and they pull a face sheet. And we've had it happen multiple times where we're treating off of this face sheet and we get to the hospital and realize this isn't the same person. This isn't the person. Now the person told us their name and it's not matching. And we are totally responsible for that. They're responsible for that. And it's a breakdown of communication. And it's scary. And it's happened. And it can't happen to anybody. It's not a fault. But I've talked to them about how do you make it easier for your staff. And I believe my boss even talked to you about that in our place, where we have a lot of residents. And keeping that Vial of Life updated is a tremendous amount of work for our nurses and stuff to keep everyone's meds. So to have that, where we can do it, family can help, and so many people, even for our staff, to be able to update that remotely from their desk too, is an amazing thing, because sometimes you're dealing with 100, 200 residents, and you have to keep all their medicines updated,
which are
for
changing,
one nurse, which are
probably all the
changing
time.
Every time they go to a doctor. So I do talk to them about asking the doctor to print out their med list. So many people are afraid to ask their doctor. I said, they have it in their computer. Have them print out a med list, bring it back to you, give it to the nurse, and have them put it right in from that.
Well, and you even mentioned like working together in different ways, having family be able to participate in maintaining these records.
I think they do need the help, because a lot of seniors, at least in the generation we're dealing with right now, aren't very computer savvy. I think as we move into the next generation, my generation, that problem's going to go away, because that's what we do. Everything is on. And then as we get to our kids, oh my God, they don't know what to do if they don't have a phone in their hand.
Right.
So I was, I
got one right here.
Right. And we never leave without our phone. We'll
Right.
lose our purses. We'll lose everything, but no one ever loses their phone.
Right.
And I tell that. And I was talking to my sister on the way here about the thing, and she's downloading the app as we speak, because I told her, what happens if you have a fire in your house and you have to run out of your house? What do we grab first? Usually it's going to be our phone. And it has your policies. You could have your insurance policies in there. You can have everything in there. You might lose everything, but you have the numbers, and people don't realize what a tragedy when something happens and you don't have those policy or numbers. You might know the company could take delay so much. So besides that, we all have our phones.
Mm-hmm.
So
the other piece I just wanted to give you credit for, which I loved so much, and I know our designer appreciated it, was even just the practical nature of people have different types of wallets. And so if the goal is to make sure that a first responder sees this immediately, design it in a way that it can fit
it does
all different types of wallets. So even if it's vertical, if it's horizontal, you're going to know that this is something you need to pull right
and
away.
I do. I carry just a credit card wallet. I don't even carry a purse because I lose them everywhere. So I just have a little credit card wallet that has a few credit cards and a little slot for cash. And I carry it in my pocket. And I used to carry it on the back of my phone. So
how many Vial of Lifes and wallets have you had to look through, you think? Would you estimate?
Oh, hundreds, thousands. That's the first thing you do is look for, the refrigerator first. But if we're out in public, if it's someone that fell, or something, you're going through their wallet. You're trying to pull in the pockets if they're not able to talk to you or if they're incoherent. Sometimes they're altered, so you don't want to take everything they're saying because they may be telling you wrong. So, people think it's an evasion going through, but we're not looking for anything else but for the information. But
if you had any advice for us on like where you'd want to see us keep going, how do you want us to keep delivering service?
I was thinking of one thing here, and I don't know if it's possible, but I find the biggest problem is sometimes doctors give medications to our seniors or to anybody, and they forget to tell them that's in place of another medicine. We need to discontinue that, or they forget. And I've had people that are taking 2 different medicines, different names, but they're the same kind of medicine. And that's why I'm there, because they've now overdosed themselves on something because they didn't understand the directions or they didn't remember them. So if the app in any way, and I don't know if it could, for something you look in, if it had a contradiction and something was added into their app and it gave them a warning saying, these are 2 of the same medicines, check with your pharmacist or check with your doctor. Because the pharmacist sometimes will tag it and sometimes they don't realize you didn't know, stop taking the other one. So if it could red flag them in a way.
And do you think that's the most important for the senior, or do you think also the family?
For the family too, because they have to know there's so many different medicines that sound alike, look alike. So if it can be identified, because we have ones that have the same names, different names, but do the same things, and they might have just been changing it, or it's a different, CVS started buying a different product, and it's the same medicine, but it looks different, and they think it's a new pill. So
they start
just
taking
keep
double
taking
up.
both.
Right.
So if the app could, and I don't know if it's possible, if it could identify or at least give a warning to say, this is something you might want to check. And the doctor may have you on 2 different doses of the same medicine, but just to check. Because we do get overdosing of medicines because they just keep taking everything in that shoebox and they don't realize they weren't supposed to be taking some of that.
Such good advice. We started to build out something similar to that. Based off of the beers database,
right?
Starting to flag when we pull your Medicare medication, which of the ones seem like they actually may have some contraindications. But what you're advising, which I think is so smart, is like every time a new medication is added, regularly monitor, update that list and make sure that there's nothing that needs to be brought into the doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
Red flag,
so
say call your doctor, ask the question, just. And look, and he might say, no, that's what I want. And you could just hit maybe okay on it or something. Or it just stays in there. But just a red flag. I don't know if it's something that I think could be helpful because the families aren't sometimes hearing the conversation with the doctor. They just see that there's a new medicine on the list and add it. They may not ask, well, Mom, why were you put on this new medication? And a lot of times Mom will go, I don't know, doctor told me. I ask so many seniors the question I get, why do you take this? I don't know, doctor told me to take it. Do you have a heart problem? No, I don't have a heart problem. But then I'm seeing heart medicine. I'm seeing blood pressure medicine. And I'm like, well, you have high blood pressure medicine here. You have this. Oh, but I've had that for years. I'm like, you still have it. It's like they think you want new stuff. So it's how you word things. Sometimes we word things differently because we're in a rush. We're in a situation of dealing it. So it could be dangerous, and people don't know what they're taking. I can't tell you how many times people don't know why they're taking medication,
which then leads to you visiting them.
Yes, because they
right.
Yeah, and it's a big thing for us to know. Did you get dizzy because you didn't take your medicine, or your pressure was up, or did you take too much of your medicine? And they won't honestly say. They might have forgot. They don't like to admit. Did you take your medicine today? Oh, yeah. But then I look in their pill box, and the medicine's still there. And I go, but your medicine's still here. Oh, maybe I didn't take it. So, okay. Or we having the dizzy spell because they let their pressure get too high or they're too low. Or
it's like detective work.
Yeah. We always look at the pill boxes, but sometimes we don't know. But
sure. And you've got 10 minutes.
Yeah, you
10
guys.
minutes.
Yeah,
Right.
10 minutes before we have to radio and say why we're on scene longer or why this is taking so long. It's just everybody wants to keep moving, and when we get to the hospital, the doctors want to know, well, why are you bringing her? And sometimes we're bringing people they don't even know why, because the assistant living called us, and we're like, well, what's going on? Well, she fell out of bed. Well, was it witness? They're afraid they're going to get in trouble, or the caregiver's afraid they're going to get in trouble. We're not there to punish anyone. We're just there to know, was it witnessed? Did they hit their head? If they're on thinners, they become a trauma call because if they were on thinners, it's an automatic trauma call. Now we have to move even quicker because they may have a brain bleed, a slow one. They may not. We don't know. So everything changes for a reason, but no one wants to say why because they're afraid you're going to blame them along the way. And they're scared. So sometimes these people are coming from a dementia unit or something, so they can't tell us. This might be their baseline. We don't know. So I asked the caregiver, is this their baseline? I don't know, because maybe it's a new caregiver that night. Doesn't know really what their baseline is. So having all that information on that magnet saying, their dementia, they are mid or they are, whatever level, we can kind of then say, okay, maybe we're not going to ask them all those questions because they can't answer. I also do a lot with training EMS about dementia patients and how we assess, because we have to assess them differently. We have to take our time. Sometimes they can answer us, but they need that time to process it. When we ask a question, you answer it correctly. I answer it quickly. They may need, I say, 2 or 3 minutes. And if you sit there in silence, that's a long time. But they can find the answers. But then we're not sure, are those the right answer? But we have to assess a little slower, move things down. So sometimes we are on scene a little longer because we do have to take that time and try not to agitate them or scare them, because people are coming in and they have no clue why they're being. Some people don't even know why we were called. They might have had an X-ray earlier in the day, and now the X-ray came in at 11 o'clock at night, and they have a broken hip. So they're told to come and get them. So we're waking them up out of bed, and they're like, why am I going? Because you have a broken hip. They don't even remember they had the X-ray. So there's a lot of communication that could help with.
Just picking up the pieces and being able to understand the context.
And maybe someday we can say to people, do you have the TenderCare app? Do you have the tenderID? Mm-hmm. I'm hoping you get to that point in the world, just like Mr. Miller did with his Vial of Life. It's all over the United States, and I'm hoping that for TenderCare, because I think it's, we'll call it the Vial of Life 2.0, on steroids. It's the next generation, and I think it was due, and you really have amazed me at what you have done so quickly, so I have to say that.
Well, we've been listening as much as we
can. You
can.
have.
But on that point, I'm totally cool with being 2.0 Vial of Life, right?
And it's nice to be listened to, because I advocate so much, and government sometimes is so stubborn and so slow, I'll say, that you took it so quickly, and it was like, yes, someone's finally listening. So it takes that. It takes someone. They say one person can make a difference. I'm a firm believer one person can make a difference. You can't continue it by yourself. You have a team. You have a wonderful team. But you start it with an idea and you ran with it. And I give you so much credit for that, because I think it was so much due.
Oh,
it really has.
It's an honor to do this work and to listen. And that leads me to the question I have for us. Thank goodness I'm not one person. We have this power.
Well, we all can't do our jobs by ourselves. Right. I always say there's I call it my toolbox, caring toolbox. And I tell families that build your toolbox, your aging toolbox. You might not need it today. You might not need it tomorrow. Someday you're going to need it. You don't want to make those decisions in a crisis. You want to make them. And your app helps people with that if they need home care, if they need a good elder care lawyer. You're doing the work. You're really vetting them. You're only allowing people on there that you personally trust and would give to your own family member. And that's important, because when they go on the internet, it's just like poof. There's so many companies. I started 9 years ago. There were 300 and some on companies in Connecticut. There are now over 950 in 9 years. And it's just growing.
In 9 years.
In 9 years. It's just, but they turn over, and people are just like, don't know where to turn. And they're asking friends, and you know what happens when you ask. Someone might have had a good experience, someone might have had a bad. And it seems when someone has a bad experience, it's all of us are bad. And I say that's not true. There's not one size fits all. We're not all bad there, but you have to do your research. You have to do your education. And that's why I educate a lot of people just to have knowledge. So, and I think, power. And I think having a small community like Tender Care where they can go on this app and say, she did all the work. You know, your whole team has done all the work. And the only people on there, it's not because they're paying you or because you're making money off them. It's because you believe they are the best group of people to help them or find the next help they need. And it gives someone a secure place to go, which I think is great.
I love that. And that gives us so much energy as we're trying to do that even better and continue to build and make this really genuinely useful for families and also for the really incredible good actors on the other side who are serving them. I'm curious, you know, you say, you know, we need an update. We need an update. And
Right.
Finally someone's listening. I'm curious, like, what gave you the confidence that it could be the Tender Care team?
Well, I've just seen how you listen. And now I've met some of your team. I've heard from some of your team. But you're always so open to listening and generally caring about what someone is saying. And you're listening to the right people. You're finding the right people. You're researching that. And you're using your team of, not even your work team, but your team of friends that you have made in the senior community. And you've asked them to you've asked them the questions. You're listening to them and you're taking it. And it's okay even if I think you were going a wrong way and someone gave you a better idea, you'll take it and run with it. It's not saying, well, no, this is my idea. This is how I'm going. You're willing to make that change and pivot if you find that someone has a better idea or someone, and you're asking the people that are doing it and that are struggling through it and trying to make a difference in the community. And you're saying, well, here, let me see how I can help you with that. So that's where I see it, your heart. You're living it, because you have a family member that is struggling and living with a deteriorating illness. So it's not only that you're just making a career out of this, you're living it. And you want to make your path easier. You want to make your father have a better existence and a quality of life, because everybody should have a quality of life. So I feel that you have skin in the game, as I call it. It's not just someone that said, oh, healthcare, elder care, that's where I can make a ton of money and all that, and I'm going to jump into it from another field. It isn't. You start it with a heart and a passion because you needed help. And I think that's where the true quality of your app came from your heart.
We appreciate you for seeing us.
Yes.
That is what we're here and what we're all about. I think maybe just to end, my last question to you is, you've now had a decades-long, wonderful career across serving others, serving the elderly, being there for them when they're most vulnerable, when they need real help. As you look at our team and you look at us committing to this work, that requires a certain amount of resilience to do this and be there in that moment to help and to serve. And I can imagine there's been some hard parts of that as well. What advice do you have for us in continuing this forward and in us being able to achieve that type of a career ourselves as we think about what it looks like to serve in different ways?
Know you're making a difference. You know, some days it gets really hard and you get very frustrated and you say, I'll leave it to somebody else. But we can't, because we have to take it on and listen to the people. You know, talk to some of these seniors, get involved. They have such great stories. I can't tell you, people say, oh, you do so much, you're out there so much. I get so much more back from it. I really do. I said, I think I get more than I give, but always keeping an open ear, always listening to the people that need the care. The seniors. We sometimes forget, and we go over their heads and we talk to the parents and the kids and the children. We have to remember we have to talk to them too and listen to them and listen to their struggles. I think that's the best advice, but know that you're making a difference, and it's going to have hard days. I'm sure you're going to have hard days and struggles, but it's so worth it. I struggled when I was building my company's brand in Connecticut. That was my job to do. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's such a great company. It's such a big company in New York and well-known and been around since 1905. But how do I get it? And I slowly just relationship building, planting seeds, and it takes time. Relationship building takes a long time. But my firmest thing was always I was going to be a resource and not a sales pitch. And I live my life that way. I'm not a sales pitch. I'm a resource. And when people feel that you're giving to them instead of trying to sell to them, They open their minds more. They listen more. They're not so, when you get a sales call on the phone, you want to hang up in 30 seconds. You just feel invaded. So if you become a resource instead of a sales pitch and transactional, I think you will succeed, and you will keep succeeding when someone sees that really you're about what can I do to help you. It's not about how can I make more money? How can I do that? And I see that in you, and I see that in your team. You're about creating better lives for people. And I think if you just keep that heart and keep that thought, you guys are going to go miles and miles and miles. And I hope everybody in the United States is going to know about tender care very soon, if not already.
Oh, we love you, Laurie.
I love you too, Shauna.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor. And I
I'm like, this is exactly
any way I can help you guys, I'm always here for you. You can pick up the phone, and I know you have quite a few people in my field that I rely on. I can't do my job by myself, and you can't do tender care by yourself. We can start things, but it takes an army. It takes a village, as they say. And you're willing to open that and embrace everybody. So I think if you continue that, you're going to go to the sky and back.
Well,
we're going to see tender care as the next Vial of Life, the next tender care as the next. Everybody's going to talk about it.
Oh, we're so excited. We're excited to do the work. When we're only able to do this because of the very steady hand you've had in guiding us to make very smart choices. Like talking to someone who's seen thousands of wallets, like that's the resource we have in front of us, right?
Oh, it's great. I want to put one of mine. I want to put my husband's, because I had to think of my medicine the other day, and I was like, I just changed one, and I'm trying to think about it. And so we all fall in that. Same as with a will. I was talking about people updating their wills and making sure they're up to date, and then I looked at mine, and I said, oh my gosh. One of my kids wasn't even on it. The one that thinks she's the most important. And, the emergency contact or the people that were going to take over to take care, one of them was very seriously ill now, with cancer. He can't do that. So, and I fell into that same pit, and I said, the bells went off, and I use that in my conversation, because your life changes, your kids grow, things change. So if it's on your phone, you can just look at it quick and go, oh, I need to make that change. And you can just make a quick change. But it could be, if we don't do it, not that my daughter, I was hoping to go anywhere, but I fell into the same pit. Life gets busy. You forget to do these things. Right. So another thing on the app, if it can remind somebody every 5 years, have you reviewed your DNRs? Have you reviewed your power of attorneys and stuff, because they could change. They could become sick. They could become ill, incapacitated. Who's making your decisions might change. Like I've changed mine to my kids because now they're adults. And who's the right child, and it might not be your child. It could be somebody else.
Yeah, keeping it up to date. Okay, have you added her to your will?
Even though I had the provisions of additional children, yes, she has been at it. And the joke was, when I always talked about it, was saying my son for the will, like, well, Chris will take care of this, Chris will take care of that. And my husband goes, but why not Maria or Brooke? Maria's old. And I go, well, because Maria's sitting there crying as we're talking about a will. She will not talk. She's a social worker. I love her to death. She just doesn't want to know about her mom and dad's mortality. And that's fine. That's not the right person. But she'll be the person caring for me. Trust me. And my son will be okay, what do I need to do? And then my youngest, I say, is sitting there with a calculator going, what's 1/3? Because she's 24. She's a character. And she doesn't know why. My kids even say that. She's like an only child because there's an 11-year difference. She was, from my oldest. And she's like, why do they get the house? They already have houses. Why can't I have it? And I'm like, you do have siblings, you're not another child. So I do that to joke when I talk to the seniors, because we don't have to make this so morbid, and it doesn't have to be, but you want everybody to feel they're taken care of, and it doesn't have to be a morbid thing to talk about. And families should talk about their wishes and stuff and do that. So
I love it. All right, guys. Okay? Let's give it up for Laurie.
Thank you.